All set? Joanne, all set? All right. All right, call to order, special meeting, North Smithfield Town Council, June 12th, 2023. Madam Clerk, can you do prayer and a pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here.
Ms. Hamilton?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara? Here. Mr. Ogier?
Here.
Ms. Alves?
Here. Next item, open forum pursuant to 4246-6D. This is for agenda items only. Did anyone want to, no one signed up? Did anyone want to speak to open forum? No one wants to speak? Okay. The next one is the public hearing on FY 2023-24 budget. Do a roll call for that?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara? Yes. Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Okay, the public hearing is open. Did anyone want to get up and ask any questions on the budget? Mhm.
If I may.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam President, Town Council members, Mr. Administrator, members of the Board and Commission, friends and residents. Thanking you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to point out some things. I know that our state aid this year was very high, more than what we even requested from the town. But I just want to point out some unexpected expenses that exceeded our original proposal from February. As you know, we put our proposal in February. We monitor it, we report, and I'd like to identify those things. So we're at a level of funding of $29,517,497. which, if you go to the sheet I handed out, is more than what we originally requested. The problem is we have identified substantial increases in the proposed budget from February. The major item was special education going up an additional $392,000. We're looking to add a math interventionist and a grade 2 teacher from increased enrollment. We do have some savings, medical in health insurance premiums and others, and again, it's outlined in what I handed out. We are requesting an additional 1%, which is $215,355, which does not include the potential of us having to add a grade 1 and kindergarten teacher. Again, enrollment is increasing, and we need, we need to keep up with the increased enrollment. The second reason that we're requesting 1% is that although state aid is high this year, we don't expect it to be as high, and they don't have a minimum funding each year. So you may see state aid go down substantially next year. And then what happens in that situation? Do we come to you and say we need 5% or 4%? We're trying to level it out. As you know, anything that we've done in the past, if we ran a surplus, we put that into capital. And if you notice, the schools look great. We spend money on capital, mainly items, or we try to find items that are reimbursable through RIDE so we can continue to get the best bang for the buck. If you go to the second page of what I provided, we are running, obviously we have the revolving fund through the town. We have a fund balance. This is where we're spending the capital items in the next year. If you look at the bottom, we also have substantial repairs or capital items that we need to address in the next 5 years. So if we do run a surplus this year, we are going to use that for capital items in the future. The other thing is, as I mentioned, we are asking for $215,000. We would also ask that you fund a minimum of $200,000 in the capital revolving fund. As I mentioned, we spend our money wisely, and all of our projects have come in at or below budget. So again, the request, and I understand it's a little odd that we were fully funded and we're requesting more money, but it has to do with the timing of the budget and us identifying additional expenses that we're going to need to pay for in the upcoming year. So when you do address the budget, I'm just asking that you consider an additional 1% or $215,000 and an additional $200,000 or more in the capital revolving fund. And remember, I think state aid just went up to, for us, I think it's 37 or 37.5% reimbursement. So if it puts it in the revolving fund, then we spend that 35 again, and we keep on rolling it over, so we get the biggest bang for the buck. Thank you. Here if anybody has any questions, but thank you.
Mr. Lombardi, so I know your budget was done back in January, but when did you actually meet with the budget committee? Wasn't it later in the season?
It was in May, I believe.
In May? So did you advise them that there was going to be this shortfall?
We weren't aware of it at that time, but I did communicate with them, on a number of occasions by just asking them to put aside funds just in case. We didn't think we were going to be, it was an anomaly that we were actually fully funded by the state. But then, unfortunately, the special education expense came in. And that alone is $400,000 or $392,000.
Can you just explain that, what that is, the special, just so everybody understands the ramifications of that? You would be so kind.
Sure. I mean, I can go over it very briefly. Superintendent, do you want to be more specific?
No, just
Oh.
briefly, just so.
So as you know, we are required to provide education to all. There is, which would include special education. So for example, if a child comes in the district that needs medical attention, we have to provide a nurse, and it's pretty much at the cost of $150,000 if it's a severe case. It's pretty much at the cost of $150,000. So again, I don't know the specifics about why this went up. We have the superintendent here who can testify on it if you'd like. But these are requirements. There's no, you can't say, no, we're not going to do it. There's no requirement. I mean, there's no option there.
Okay, good, thank you. I just wanted everyone to know what that was for, because that's a significant increase.
Correct.
But again, not, it's nothing that we can say no to, and I think we have to all be aware of that, so.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Can you just kind of highlight on the other couple of items that are increased?
Sure. So the grade two teacher, that's due to increased enrollment in the second grade, so there's a requirement to add a teacher there. The high school math interventionist, although I didn't speak to the superintendent about this, I'm sure that has to do with the math scores in the high school. And, you know, if you go back to the pandemic and the problems that we've had since the pandemic, I'm assuming that they think that, that we need a high school math interventionist to get our grades up.
Was that part of the extra funds we had gotten for some of the COVID money? Wasn't there a math
Can you go up
Superintendent,
to the-
can you come up and,
There was previously. This is a new math interventionist based on the latest SAT and PSAT scores
Okay.
from the high school.
Okay. So this is to, can you just, because we can't capture it, I'm sorry, you know, unless we have the mic, you want to bring the mic up. So this is basically to help our kids catch up? Is that what you know, pretty much, is that?
Yes, this
that's
position
it?
is specifically for the high school math.
Just high school
And
math,
we
okay.
have elementary and middle school, but we haven't had a high school math interventionist. And based on the this year's SAT and PSAT scores, they definitely need a boost.
Okay. So this person would be dedicated solely to the high school?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And can you highlight in the others, the in-district transportation, the additional, is that personal days, paid days, or what is that?
So the in-district transportation went up 4%, which was actually quite low. We went into a contract with Burrillville and Smithfield and combined our 3 districts to get a better rate for transportation. So 4% seems like a lot, but compared to what's happening around the state is very low. But we do have to accommodate for that. The addition for the professional days, we had common planning time at our schools in agreement with the teachers' union, which was 45 minutes of professional development every morning before the students arrived. It was on an MOA. The MOA is no longer in place, so we have to add dedicated full-day professional days instead of the 45 minutes in the morning. And in doing so, our instructional assistants, we have to pay them for the day, those PD days, because we want them to participate. So that was that amount.
you wanna go into that?
Yeah, the other thing we did put in for a part-time athletics director. Now, part-time, that's a loose definition. Our Matt Tech, our current athletic director, resigned. And we feel that the position is much, much, much too large and important for a teacher doing some additional time after school. We really need to catch up with the rest of the state. Now, this budget isn't looking at a full-time athletic director, which if you compare full-time ADs across the state, they're running between 80, 90, 100, $120,000 a year. We're at least putting in for a part-time athletic director. Now, we still haven't worked out the hours based on the seasons, but this is what we feel is sort of the minimal for this position.
So the stipend, is it, with the stipend still, that's in the
Stipend,
budget?
we have a $14,000 stipend for the current AD. We would apply that towards this position. So again, there's a little bit of movement as far as where the actual dollar amount lands. And again, this is new territory
Right.
for us, so.
Right, and you are offering salary and benefits for part-time, so there'll be, so that
Yes.
58, will that be all-inclusive, you think?
That's the intent.
Okay,
Whether or not somebody steps forward for that, I
Right.
don't know.
right.
So, but this is, at this moment, what we're proposing as a solution.
So what's your solution going forward if someone does not step forward?
It might require full-time, might require more money. I don't, again, new territory for North Smithfield. Again, you look around the state, I'm aware of maybe 2 or 3 districts, including ours, that has a stipend position for a teacher. Most other athletic director positions are full-time, sort of crosswalking with a facilities director, if you want to just, draw that association.
Okay. Anyone else have any more questions?
Just a couple real quick. As far as the athletic director goes, we have great sports programs, and we have some
Yes,
great
we
athletes
do.
that come out of that school. I can't say enough about it, so I would support that 100%. The other question I had was, could you explain, in your budget that you presented to the Budget Committee, could you explain the need for an additional school psychologist?
Oh, God.
They could use fine.
We have had such an increase in emergency room referrals, clinical placements, everything that sort of built up before and during COVID. And to be honest, I thought this year was going to be easy because COVID is over. There's a cumulative effect. And we have seen our psychologists, and again, we had 2, one shared between middle and high school. The needs have become so much that one person can't do it. We need that dedicated person at each school, and even at that, that could be dicey for a little while, but it's better than what we had. Again, the emergency referrals, the clinical evaluations, I get the reports of suicidal ideations, kids cutting themselves, kids in trauma. And again, it's just, I don't know whether it's COVID, it's society, it's TikTok, it's whatever you want to point it to. Our kids, especially at the teenage years, are going through tremendous turmoil. And so that was one of the minimal things we could do, is at least try to get another psychologist so that each school had a dedicated person to meet the students' needs.
I'd like to add something to that. I can't say enough for our middle school principals working with parents. High school, the new high school teacher's been wonderful. I don't know if people realize that our kids 3 years ago entered school, where after school they were playing together, basketball, doing this and that, and suddenly there was nothing. Parents and children were working from home. That in itself you could get counseling on. It was not easy. We need to put our children first. People have said, well, I don't want my taxes to go up. Have you gone to the market? Have you bought gas? How about fueling your home this winter? It's not going to be easy. We're going to handle that. But before that, I want you to make sure that the needs of our children are met. There's an old saying, you can't take it with you. And if you're going to spend it on something worthwhile, psychologist, absolutely. Have you tried to get a doctor appointment during this time? Never mind a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You're on a waiting list. When you're working, when you're people that are are in the field where they're called out of their homes or have to do double shifts because it's not enough even to take care of hospitals, nursing homes. It's a trauma. Do you think anybody wants to pay more? But if the money is spent for the good and welfare, it's not frivolous. It's a necessity. Also, I don't know why the state of Rhode Island does not work like Mass and Connecticut. We are not allowed to have a stipend for any sport. The children, when my son went to school, let me tell you, you knew what you were getting for Christmas. It was either a candle or cheese, because they'd go out and sell candy. Every construction site was earmarked, and the kids would go there with a case, and that would go in one day. So it could take down the cost. But with everything else that's getting higher, the state of Rhode Island will not let this happen. Look into Connecticut, and it's even budgeted over a year. You have a $300 for some sports. They pay, I think it's like $24 a month. You get 2 gallons of bread. You get 2 breads and 2 gallons of milk. This is your $24. And then in teams that like hockey, and that's primary, ice time. Their ice time is considered how many kids in a team, how many months in a year, and it's done that way. And it's been done since when my granddaughter, the 2 first girls did it, and they paid for busing, but it was, and if there's anyone that couldn't afford $24 a month, they found someone that would help. But they're making mandates, making everything more, and not giving us more. Maybe we should talk up and talk to our appointed legislators, because it's not right. We have to put these kids first, and we have to speak up, and not just to one another. And we have developed the sports department. We had track, but track and field, discus, pole vaulting. It's there, most schools have it. We're developing this, and if we can reach out and get every child interested in something. Theater, our art program is fantastic. We've done that over the years. Sports was really basic, but we know that's changed tremendously. So when you think someone complains, well, I'm going to pay $300 or more a year, etc., $400. Think of what 4 people, 5 people go out to eat. If you don't think you're going to shove that out fast. So we have to be logical. And it's that we're out here to get money. I'm on this council. But first and foremost, this is our town. These are our children. The children we had are having children, and many of them are still in town. And in special ed, we have no choice. People come in this town, some in the past had to be sent to private schools. Astronomical. But it's part of our obligation when someone moves into a town. And we can't pick and choose. We're America. Everyone should have a chance. And I know there's been bickering out there, and the school gets too much, and this gets too much. Well, between you and I, school, as far as I'm concerned, is the most important, because what we do now will affect our children later. And anytime you want to talk to me, yell, be my guest, but I'm not going to change the way I feel. Thank you.
Madam President? Kim and Doug are the accountants, and they probably know the answer to this, but I have to ask the stupid question, okay? Last week, the Budget Committee proposed that they came up and they presented their budget. They said the school funding with the additional state aid would be $28,931,123. But on here, we have $29,400,000 $517,497. That's a difference of $586,000. Do you know what's going on there?
Not exactly
So-
sure their funds versus,
Lisa, you?
we don't know where they got that number.
So is our number correct, or is it theirs?
Joey, could you have any, could you?
So, but that has, I'm sure that includes federal reimbursement and stuff like that, or it doesn't? So they might be more on doing the local stuff. That's other reimbursements that we get, I assume.
Okay, wait a minute here.
Okay.
Yeah, the number we got was the projection from the state. That's the number we were working with.
Okay, so the state, up until last week, had two different projections. They had the $300,000 projection, the $800,000 projection, and then the higher number that actually came in, which was beyond our wildest dreams. What they did, they made adjustments they put in some extra for high-cost special education, English language learners, of which our numbers went up.
Right.
And there was also an adjustment, most districts across the state lost enrollment. North Smithfield last year, I anticipate this year, was one of 10 districts in the state that actually increased enrollment. And so there was some adjustment for that. So we actually came out at the good end of this, much more so than other districts that are larger than us or comparable in size, because our English language learner population went up. They made the adjustments for high-cost special education, and our enrollments did not decrease. And so we gained a bit for the state formula. The concern, as Mr. Lombardi said, is that every year what the state giveth, they can take away. And our concern is having a structural deficit going into next year if the state reduces the aid to education.
So the answer is basically that they were working off a projection, and this is a real
Which
number that you have.
I think it was probably the 300,000 original
We
projection.
were working off from the state was 7,386,472.
Right, so it's a,
Yeah, I don't know the whole number versus the difference.
That's the old number.
That's the old number.
But I'm looking at, page 10 of the handout, and it shows the total at 29 million gone up. I don't think everything was all inclusive of the number that you got from the budget committee.
yeah, because we're looking at a 13.45% increase, which is what you were saying, right? $7,386,472. So almost $900,000 extra according to what state allocation was proposed to be at the time that the budget committee presented to us. Right?
So I
But-
think that was an adjustment to the governance budget. We adjusted to the House Finance Committee. Still has to go before the Senate now.
Right.
But in the budget committee's notes they sent last week, it says in excess of the estimated 28,810,000 the school department has budgeted for operations. So is that number not correct? That's saying that that's what your budget was.
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Well, it was the budget committee's memo last week, but they're referencing your, the school department's budget of 28,810,000.
CJ, can you give her a mic? Thank you.
So our FY '23 budget, the adopted budget, was 28,377,680.
Hey, we don't have that.
All right, we'll have to see where they're
Yeah.
getting that number they're working from.
So may I ask a quick question about the capital, just for my edification? So these items that you have here, from window replacement, generator, AC in the library, auditorium, and all the way down, are these prioritized? And I know you're having, what, a 37% reimbursement from RIDE for some of this?
For some of this. This is a total list. I didn't list it in priority order,
Okay, okay.
you know, but I can break down.
No, I'm just wondering if the way it is written, if there were some things that are essential right now and like I really need them and we should be paying attention, or, you know, things are just listed without, you know, having a priority.
Yeah, these are actually planned for the next year.
Okay,
Yes, there are a couple of things, like, for example, the pickup truck with the plow, we've asked for that for about 4 years now.
okay.
But we're not asking for any money. These are all funded already.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
So, and there was concern with our fund balance in the revolving fund. And yes, that has all been earmarked.
Okay,
It's
good.
just a matter of putting out the bids and getting the contractors and getting the work
Getting
done.
the ball rolling. Okay,
Exactly.
good. Thank you.
I have a quick question. The dollars, the dollars that you don't know for certain if you're gonna need them because it's tied to enrollment, when will you get more clarity around those last 4 items if they're gonna be needed? I'm assuming if not this year, then they're probably gonna be needed next year.
Right, so that is something that we're gonna have to take a look at this summer. And I put in a couple of the notes. For example, right now in first grade, based on our estimate of how many first graders we have and the contractual class size, we have 10 seats remaining. Last year, we had 20 new registrants, enrollees for first grade. And based on the contract, the minute we go over the maximum seat count, we have to open up a new class. So that's the same for kindergarten. Right now, we have, I estimated 100. We have 91 students registered at this point. However, kindergarten enrollments, sometimes it's a week or 2 before school begins, and suddenly we get the flood of people registering for kindergarten. So it's put in here as a possibility. We don't exactly know yet until we get our summer registrations in. The 2 part-time aides are attached to the kindergarten and the grade 1 classroom. So that's why they're in there as well.
And then my other question was, I apologize if you've answered this before in the past, the student enrollment as it ties to the state funding formula, just knowing that the state can plus or minus depending on the year and whatever, but if enrollment continues to increase, shouldn't that be more favorable to us? Or is there other factors that weigh
If the
heavier?
funding formula stays the same and they don't dial it back for some reason, it's also tied to the general socioeconomic rating of the community. So that could change. To be honest, the state has a bit of a surplus in COVID monies this year, and so they were very generous with education. Next year, I don't know, probably not. And so we could be facing a decrease in state aid.
Thank you.
Superintendent, as far as practicing our seat capacity, if, we had 1 year, I think every 5th grade was at max. So if after, I think it was October 1st or maybe November 1st, if another student came in, they did not open up a class,
Not
but they
after
gave a
October
stipend.
1st.
So they did have a time. If
Right.
extra comes in, that teacher gets a stipend each, for whatever class.
Yeah, and I've also tried to play around with the numbers that if we need to spin up another grade 1, for example, I looked at the other grade levels to see if I could reduce a teacher and allocate it. That just puts them at maximum class size. And we don't have the largest classrooms because a lot of our schools were built 30 years ago or so. even if contractually, we could get away with 28 fifth graders or 28 fourth graders in a classroom, that is a miserable experience for the teachers and the kids. I mean, we'll do it, and we have done it in the past. It's not ideal. Ideally, I'd like to keep in that 24 to 25 range, a little bit of extra space, a little bit of, you know, but it's still fiscally responsible based on the contract and the number of personnel that we need. I don't want to jack up every classroom to the maximum or pay a teacher a stipend for an extra 2 or 3 kids, and now we're up to 29 or 30 in a classroom.
I think I found out where the money was. So the 28,810,372 was what was submitted to the, submitted, it looks like, from the departmental request, and town appropriation from the school and state aid. And then I think the other dollar amount, the 29 million, was when the administrator, budget was presented. So I think it was just timing.
Okay.
A lot of numbers flying around.
It's your job to figure it out.
Anyone else have any more questions?
Just more of an observation, the baseball field upgrade for $100,000. We have, there's 4 teams that play on that field. There's 2 from the high school and 2 from the town. And I personally feel, and I can argue this when we go over the budget, but I personally feel that the town should split that cost with you, considering that there's 2 town teams that use the field just as much as the high school teams, even probably more so in the summertime.
Well, a couple of things that we originally submitted to the town planning board for capital were exactly those types of facilities that are used by both the town and the schools. For example, the high school gymnasium. We really do need to replace that floor and those bleachers. Originally, we put it into as a capital request because we do have town events within the gymnasium and town leagues that use the gymnasium. But in interest of trying to keep this as revenue neutral for us, we're looking at shifting that over to our fund balance, or in the case of the gymnasium, the revolving fund, because that is eligible for Department of Ed reimbursements. So again, we're just trying to put things in a place that isn't an undue burden to the taxpayers, but it also keeps us running and functioning and moving ahead.
All set? I have just one other question, and under the, so we have town appropriation, we have state aid, then we have other funding, and we went from 275 to a projected request of 400,000. What is other funding?
Lisa, that category for other funding?
Other funding, where does that come from?
CT tuitions, basically.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part, Medicaid.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Thank
And
you.
I tell you, and we're getting increased enrollments in our career and technical programs at the high school, which districts pay us tuition to send their kids there.
Right.
So, and we're looking to use that to reinvest back in the high school, to, again, continue to improve the programs. But I should tell you, we are at a point where we're probably going to have to start rejecting students who come into the CTE program, because now we're at the point where the class sizes are such, and we have to do the calculus. Do we hire more teachers to continue to expand the CTE side? So again, we're not quite there yet, but we're approaching that point. I just want to give you an idea that our CTE programs, we have right now, I think about 23, 24, 5, 6 students from other districts paying North Smithfield tuition, as opposed to what we had before, in which we're paying the other districts' tuitions for every student that leaves. So
What's the
we're
balance
turning
of-
this around.
There's
We might now have more kids coming in than we have going out.
Okay.
Which is exactly where we want to be.
Right.
So who pays the transportation for children coming in? Is it their district?
Their districts, yes.
Okay.
And we do have an agreement, we're part of a Northwest Consortium of 5 school districts: North Smithfield, Lincoln, Cumberland, Burrville, yeah, that's it. And for CTEs, instead of charging each other $15,000 per student, we charge each other a flat 5. All right, so a student of ours that goes to Smithfield, $5,000 tuition instead of 15. Same thing, Smithfield comes to us, 5,000. Now, outside of our consortium, it's the full. So Woonsocket, other districts would pay us the full tuition, $16,000 per student that gets accepted into our CTE program.
So do we still have more people from our consortium, though, at this point coming, like locally in a geographic area?
Yes, with it, actually, the largest amount of students coming into our CTE program is from Woonsocket, and they're paying the full tuition.
Oh, from Woonsocket, okay, good. That's great.
Is it music, or what is the reason? that-
Engineering, business, and music.
Okay.
I don't have a breakdown of how many
Sorry.
go to each.
So just one more question. On the in-district transportation, you said you have a 4% increase, but then on the diesel fuel, you have a decrease. I would have thought the increase was because of the fuel. Is it because of the actual contract?
It's
or-
because of the actual contract.
So originally, we budgeted $4.79 a gallon, because that was where it was going, so we're reducing that now.
And what do you pay now?
I'm not sure what we're paying now,
We actually buy from the town.
Yeah.
we're budgeting, I think it's $4, yeah.
Other districts with their transportation contracts have had between 10 and 17% increase. And part of combining with Burrville and Smithfield to increase the size of the fleet, we were able to keep it at 4.
Anyone have any more questions?
Just a general question. So, can you, give us what happens if we don't give you 1%? What are we looking at?
We cut, we figure it out, and again, like I said, the concern is also what happens next year and the year after and the year after. It's a structural deficit that comes in, because automatically, given inflation and contracts and such, it's basically a 2% increase every year, just flat. Let alone programs or expansions or special education or all of that. It's the concern that what will happen in the future, and I mean, I could go into details on how the sausage is made and what gets cut right now, but I really need to go back and talk with the departments and the school committee to see, okay, if it's 0 and we're in a deficit, what do we dial back on?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to get up and speak in regards to the budget? Yep.
You bet.
And can you just make sure you state your name and your address, and then after we'll just have you sign, just fill out the
Sure.
form, please.
My name is Noel Green. I live at 70 Taylor Drive, and I'm a pretty new resident to North Smithfield. And overall, I've been very happy with being here. I came because I'm one parent of Benny, who has some concerns about the athletic program. I see a few of those parents in the audience as well. And I'm encouraged by some of the things that I'm hearing, but I'm also a little discouraged because based on my career and where I've lived, I've been in communities where there is a struggle to have the appropriate funds to have an appropriate educational program. And I would not have thought that North Smithfield would be in a position where it could be a situation where we just don't have enough, which would then cause us to have to cut programs. And one thing that I've heard is that we have to think children first. So based on what I see as a community that seems to have means to have an adequate educational program that has the appropriate extracurricular activities, I can't imagine it being a situation where we would have to say, oh, well, we didn't get the additional amount of money that we need to run an adequate program, therefore we have to cut. I think that that would be tough to look at the community members and say that that's what we're going to have to do. If you look at other communities that have made it work somehow, some way, they have figured it out. So I think that this community can do the same thing. I'll try to keep this brief. I have been an athletics director. I've been in education for about 26 years. And being an administrator at almost any level is typically a full-time job, not part-time. So the basis of my discussion here is really about advocating that we have the best academic and athletic program possible. We would never consider having a part-time principal, right? So we should have a full-time principal like we do in all the schools and a full-time athletics director. Evidence, if you go into the school website, the high school website, and you look at the athletic department website, you'll see pictures that are 5, 6, 7 years old. They don't represent the students that currently participate in our athletic program. And I'm not saying that to disparage the people who are currently running the athletics program. They just don't have enough resources and support or time to do the role. If we had a full-time athletics director, I think we would have the ability to not only be at a level where we're having a robust program, but we're also able to be innovative in what we do. Right now, it's kind of like just the same old, adequate, just the bare minimum. And we should not be a town that operates as such. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the council their support in regard to moving forward with a full-time athletic director, because I think asking for a part-time athletic director keeps us at the level of minimum. There are other communities who have a similar size of high schools, for example, that have full-time athletic directors. It allows you to recruit. It allows you to ensure that the younger grades and the lower school students have an opportunity to get involved and move up through the system. And what we're talking about is that there are some schools that have an athletics director that are this size that is just for the high school. A full-time athletics director in this community would not only just support the high school, but they would also support the middle and the lower school. So we have such an opportunity. We're not asking for something that is, different than what some other communities have. So I think that for us to not operate in a deficit model and get us to on par with everyone else, and then in the future we could exceed. I think this is the type of community that actually can exceed and not just dwell in the realm of let's just be like every other program. So I think that we have an opportunity here. If you look at all the other costs, we're talking about $29-something million. If we want to talk about the $58,000 that was allocated for a potential part-time athletics director, with an investment of perhaps $30,000 or $40,000 more dollars, we could get a full-time athletics director. So I'm not sure in the scope of $29 million how an additional $40,000 or $50,000 would really set us back. So we really have to think about that in the scope of the grand scheme of things. So we have a real opportunity here. Students shouldn't have to be worried about getting new uniforms. There shouldn't be years going by where that isn't the case. And the last thing I'll say is that there's a significant impact on our parents in regard to not having a full-time athletics director. I look at some of the people in this room, some of the parents, look at the women that are in this front row. I don't know all the parents, but the amount of time that they spend volunteering to do things that should be actually done by a full-time athletics director is extraordinary. They don't get paid. They're volunteer parents, and they do things that should be part of the actual athletics program. So I don't think that an additional $40,000 or $50,000 potentially to advocate or to allocate for a full-time athletics director is too much to ask. I don't think it should be in the realm of having to ask the school committee than to have to ask the town to do that. So I'm just advocating. I think this is well worth it. If you look at the research in regard to what athletics means for students, how it help students come to school. It could sometimes be that bridge that says, hey, I want to be at school because I want to be at, I want to be at the game, and this is great for me. The last thing I'll say, and I know I've said that 4 times, but think about all the other programs in this school. Athletics is almost every day of the year, 365 days. There are athletic programs that happen during Sundays. How can we think that my son was on the track team? They've had meets on Sunday. So how can we actually think that a part-time administrator is capable of managing all these programs when there are athletic events Monday through Sunday every week and extending into the summer? So please consider that. Thank you. I'm sorry to take up too much time.
Thank you.
Future member of the NSAA right there, I think.
Anyone else want to speak?
I was going to talk about school, but no, go ahead. Okay, you're on the topic. Hi, my name is Michael Black, and I live at 19 Leonard Drive. Number one, thank you very much for allowing me some time to speak. And I had prepared notes, but there were some changes of events that from the $400,000 funding that I wasn't aware of. And after listening to some others, my concern is, one, I think we're blessed, right? We're blessed that the state had more money than they thought. They gave it to our town. I think that's a great scenario for us. The problem with that scenario is that we look at that as an impact, that it's not a blessing, but something that has been given to us that we work with in a current year. And my challenge with this is that we look at a year budget, and I've run a business, all my life, and how you guys budget every year is extremely difficult. And I don't think the average town person truly understands that you got a budget prior to be able to get, but then the state intersects in that, and then you create conversation, and it's just difficult dialogue to be able to go from a factual basis to be able to say and state what is necessarily that's needed. My time up here is to say that I want to support Mr. Lombardi's 1% increase, and I'm going to tell you why. From a business standpoint, even though you were gifted with dollars, we continually had to reinvest in our business. And the fact that we just take care of cost is one thing. But when it comes to the school system, if you don't continually reinvest with the challenges, especially from the pandemic area, and my heart goes out in regards to the needs of this school when we're talking about special needs kids, which I can speak very well on. We talk about the athletic program, which one thing that Neil talks about, I thought he did a phenomenal job, is that we just invested $500,000 in a field. And these are investments that go through. And with a full-time AD, I think there's an opportunity to, in time, is to be able to utilize that field from a business standpoint, that request of that extra $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 will be coming back to the town. But you need to invest to be able to gain financial stability, but be able to reap the rewards of that. And I support what you said 100%. The other side of it, too, is that I've never really said this out loud to anybody, but some time back, when we zero funded, where we didn't increase the schools, I really felt the impact of the schools. And my wife and I moved here in 2006, and we didn't have any children in the school. But I felt it was very important from a business standpoint that we support the schools, the towns, the police department, the fire department, the roads. And I will tell you that the time that I was president of NMC, we donated over $650,000 to North Smithfield. And I've never said that publicly. But I feel it's necessary that not only I'm not trying to create something, but I saw a need. And I saw a need as a business person and as a community that I went back to the ownership of our business and said that it's important that we build a stake in our community because of that investment. When we saw, 7 years ago, when the NSAA was about to be abandoned and we had some challenges, I didn't have any kids in the sports program, but I signed up to be president. And as all of you council people recognize that you get judged every day, right? Whether what happens or not happens, but normally people aren't necessarily informed of the decisions, but we judge. But the point is, of being the NSA president in those 7 years, we've raised over $320,000. And this is from the business community. And this is from people that don't have people in the town, that don't live in the town, but I would go have lunch and tell them why I felt it was important as a business leader to invest in the business of the town that you're involved in. That $320,000 in the town was not spent on needs of the department. It's not. It's spent by the wants. And if you go down and look at some of the equipment that our athletes are practicing with, that was not town funded, that was not school funded, that was business funded. And again, spending $320,000 and going to the community to invest in the athletic program. The one thing that I apologize, Mr. St. Jean, is that you mentioned that the people that come into town, you gave 3 reasons. There's also 2 other reasons that I'm aware of people that come to town. One is sports, I have some numbers on that, and one is music. That our music program is being beneficial, not only to the people that are in the school, and if you haven't been there, you've got to see one of those things, because they're phenomenal, but the fact that people are coming to our town because of our music program, and now because of our sports program also. That is an investment that's been made in the town. One other thing that Neil mentioned is those ladies right there in that front row, that's the board of the NSAA. I kind of am the face, but those ladies work their tails off, one, not to try to improve sports, but we were investing in the events, whether it was a hockey event, we paid for the students to play, so we had more people in the fans. It was about putting up different decorations to build school spirit. You can wish that, but you gotta need people to make it happen. And we're not coming to you for any of that. We're gonna fund that, and we'll take care of that. But the events and what we're trying to do in North Smithfield is special. And my concern is that you're gonna say, we got enough money for this year, so we're gonna bypass it. You lose that 1% this year, what happens is it gets compounded over year from a business standpoint, then in 3 to 4 years, you can be in a complete deficit because you haven't paid into it. And then you have a much higher ticketed bill. What I'm saying is that if you invest small amounts each year, you don't have to compound when you get an emergency 911 call and then go into a distress situation that we're coming to you for a 6% increase, just to level what we've created. I need you guys to think about the future. I understand the present. I understand the pressure of the present. I think somebody talked about the dollar amounts and what's going on, that it would be a very minimal amount. Claire mentioned that the 2 gallons of milk and the loaf of bread. I'm asking you that you think about the future and just not the present. I'm asking you to think about, you have volunteers and people sitting here right now that are creating money, gaining money, spending their time, one from community effort, but we're reinvesting back in the town. Every dollar the NSA makes goes back to the students. Every dollar, every penny. I make sure of that. There's nothing that goes outside of that. The other side of it is the investment that we made from a business standpoint. I mean, you know, I'm not gonna pick on the chief of police, but I'm gonna pick on the chief of police because he's my neighbor. But the fact is that one, he is a stand-up individual, a class act. And the times that he called and said, Mike, can you help? We ran to help. We ran to help. And those were just small, simple requests that was not necessary. And I apologize, Chief. I didn't mean to put you on that spot. I know you hate that. But the man, when he asked me for a favor, I did whatever I could. You know, we weren't in compliance in the fire department 9 years ago with our engines because we didn't have the right brass tags. They didn't know what to do. We created 672 brass tags that we gave to the fire department, willing, which is perfect, because one, we want our firefighters to be safe, but the second side of it, that if we're not in code of a fire department, I just felt like that was a blemish on the town. So we fixed that. So I just want you to understand that I know you got the high position up here. I know you guys set funding. I know you get pressure from a level of people from a budgetary standpoint to minimize it, but I'm asking you for the investment. I'm asking you for the same investment that I've given this town since I've moved in here in 2006. I continue to do. We have members that are sitting in the crowd right now that this isn't an hour a week. This is at times 20 to 25 hours a week that we're trying to invest, again, building it. So we're building and investing in the future, and I'm just asking the same from the 5 of you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for my time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Joey Savigny, 1790 Pound Hill Road. I'm the vice chair of the budget committee, and I just want to shed light on a few things. We thought long and hard about how we did this budget, and with the schools getting the money from the state, it allowed us to give other departments in town an advantage to get things they needed. One of the big things we looked at again was the schools. We have budgeted to give the schools an SRO officer for the elementary school full-time, who will also serve at Camp Phoenix for the kids. Another thing that we looked at was the tennis courts at the high school needed to be replaced. Instead of giving the money to the school department, because they are town tennis courts, we felt that it was best to give the money to Parks and Rec to get those tennis courts replaced. The other thing that we were looking at was they're having a difficult time at Parks and Rec getting seasonal help to take care of the fields and the parks. So we were able to give them a full-time position, budget for it, so that the parks can be better maintained. So the money the school got the 3.5% that they asked for. It's just coming from the state. It allowed us to give some of the other departments in town the resources that they need for other things. So I think 5.5% is a large number for the schools compared to what everybody else in town is asking for. I think 3.5%, yes, it's coming from the state, but you also have to look at the schools, what else they're getting. They're getting tennis courts, they're getting an SRO officer. There's other things that they're getting, it's just through other departments. And so if anybody has any other questions. And I guess I got one other question for the schools. You guys have a restricted fund. Can that money from the restricted fund be used to offset any of those other expenses?
Not for personnel.
So what is that 550,000 sitting in restricted funds? What is that for? When I looked at the audit, there was 500,000 that was in restricted funds, and I was told that money was to be used for only specific items.
So that number, it's not, it would be like food service, grants. And you can't use those for anything other than what they're intended for.
So can that money be used for those things, and those, what we budgeted that money for, be used for the other things? It just seems odd to me that there's $500,000 sitting in accounts that we can't use.
So we can use it, but we can only use it for those restricted purposes.
Okay, so if we use it for those restricted purposes, that frees up the other money that's in the general fund for those purposes.
Those things, those expenses are not in the general fund.
Okay, I'm still confused on the whole restricted fund thing, but we'll have to discuss it later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Sorry, I'm a little shorter than these guys. My name is Elizabeth Albino. It's 36 Fillion Drive. I know we talked a lot about money just now, but I want to kind of bring it back to the kids and bring it back to some of what Neil, right, was saying. I have a child in North Smithfield who has a disability, and he's been in this school system forever. And so I also think that the athletic director has been significant, and even still to this day, for my child, because he's had 504s and all of these things. And without athletics, he would have never even graduated. He would have never had the focus to ever get through school. Not only that, but the athletic director helped him get in college, and now he's a teacher. So it's not just about just the sport. It's about the kids as a whole and their growth. So I wanted to point that out because it's not just about the kids, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna get emotional, but it was a hard road for him. It's not just about the kids that we know have a disability. It's about the kids that we can't touch, that sports or music do touch, okay? The other thing that I want to bring up is about the psychologist. Professionally, I'm a nurse. My specialty is actually geriatrics, but during COVID, I worked for the government. I was detailed to the ICU at the beginning of COVID. I literally slept in my basement in a tent because I was afraid I was going to kill my family. My kids were home alone. Tyler was I think 12, pretty much fending for himself, okay? He never, ever showed it, ever. When the following year came around and I went to parent-teacher conferences where he had a couple of the same teachers, I got detailed again right before that. And the teacher told me, I was so glad to see Tyler. He was the only one that showed up. He was so worried about you. What about the kids that we don't know is going through something? Right? What about those children? That is what the psychologist is for. The psychologist is to get to those children and to those families and provide that education and that level of support that I didn't even know I needed. So it's not just about money, it's about futures and success and goals and teamwork and leadership. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else?
I'm so sorry. Michael Black, 19 Leonard Drive. I just wanted to comment back on the, about the 5.5% and what, that we felt that it was enough. I call crap on that. I think the pandemic has created scenarios that we don't know. I think there's things that we're going through right now that we don't know. The fact that there's an allocation that's looked at by percentage and saying that something is enough, not recognizing the needs or talking specifically about what is going on. Have we ever needed a new psychologist? I don't know. But with the reactionary side of where we're at and where we're going is going to be predicated on the funding that's available. So the fact that when I hear a percentage base on what's necessary, and I understand there's other people, but I also find that there's a necessary part of our kids and our school system that we need to respond to. So basing it off of a percentage, to me, was ridiculous. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Rich Keene, 7 Bamford Street. I'm here wearing 2 hats tonight. First of all, for the North Smithfield Heritage Association, we've enjoyed tremendous support from the town, from virtually everybody in town for years. And I just want to thank the town administrator and the budget committee for their recommendations, and I hope that the town council can support that. We would be tremendously appreciative if you could. The second hat I'm wearing tonight is for the Historic District Commission. Jeff Harris is the chairman, and he's coaching a Little League game tonight, and so I'm pinch hitting for him. And I have to apologize for this last minute request. This is something we just became aware of this morning. Jeff was talking with the president of the Rhode Island Historic Preservation Commission, and he found out that they have $5,000 available in the form of a matching grant that we could use. We did have this grant last year to apply for to the National Registry of Historic Places for a listing for Grange Road as a National Historic District. Unfortunately, when we went out to bid, we didn't get any bids for it. And so we lost the $5,000. But now that we know that it's there, we have to come up with a matching, if possible, we have to come up with $5,000 of matching funds. There's $2,500 sitting in the current budget for the Historic District Commission that's available. The Budget Committee's recommended, and the town administrator, I believe, $1,500 for FY24. And what we're asking is if the town council could increase that number by $1,000, keep the current $2,500 that's in this year's budget. That would give us the $5,000, and we could go out to bid. And the reason why we're optimistic now is because of the Maury Tower restoration project. The company that's doing the historic research for the town has indicated that they'd be interested in bidding on this historic district application for us. So we just ask if you could consider the extra $1,000 for the Historic District Commission. Thank you. Oh, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to get up and speak? Anyone else? No? Okay, want to close the public hearing?
I just want to ask one quick question. Just so we can debate it fully. I know the part-time athletics director was 58,000, but I was sitting up here thinking about it more so, and just so we can see a comparison. I know there was a range of numbers, but is it possible for the school department to kind of hone in on a cost and anticipated start date? I'm assuming you're probably already going out looking for somebody, or will be soon. And when do you anticipate a position filled so that if it was full time, say they come on 6 months in the year, then we can at least have an idea. Yeah, just a full-time estimate when you anticipate hiring.
Absolutely, we need to hire somebody right now.
Yeah, I get it.
That's the question we have right now. So, but yes, as soon as we have an idea of the funding, we want to post for that position because there's an awful lot that has to happen over the summer in preparation for the fall. And for regular stuff during the summer, so.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Yeah.
tying on that is, it's really unfortunate that we're asking for a full-time athletic director once we lose Mr. Tech. So is it something that Mr. Tech would be interested in if it was a full-time position, or is he just done without?
No, he's done.
He's still with the school
No,
system?
he's still with the school department. He has always had a full-time job. This was in addition to his full teaching schedule.
Right.
He just no longer has capacity. He has kids. He
Right.
has,
No, I'm just saying, it's unfortunate that we're realizing that this is a full-time position when
We have had a tremendous bargain with Mr. Tech over these years.
he's done a lot for the community.
Yes, he has.
Just wish we noticed this sooner, that we could have, had him in the right position at the right dollar amount to keep him at that level. It's just unfortunate. Anything else?
No, I think I'm piggybacking off that, Kim. Maybe it's, Madam President, maybe it's good if maybe not now, but in like 6 months when we do our fall meeting, maybe we look at like potential personnel needs down the line. I know the Budget Committee wants to work in terms of capital, but maybe we can try to anticipate future personnel needs as enrollments shift around, and we're not in June being like, now we need a full-time athletic director. We can kind of plan these things as, longer.
These things come as a surprise.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So, but yes, as much as we can, we will.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
All right, one more yeah.
Ray Pendergast, Director of Public Works. I just want to put on the, out there tonight, every year, I put in for $800,000 for roads. One of the biggest complaints in this town are roads. Fortunately, we're getting $600,000 in road work done, costing us $93,000 because of the gas work from Rhode Island Energy. So it's at $700,000, and I would appreciate if it stays at 7, even happier if it goes to 8, but I hope that that's not an easy target to take down back to 600 like it has in the past. Thank you.
Okay, can I say something, Madam President? I actually support the 800,000 this year, and I actually think that maybe we should look at pulling a little bit from the fund balance to kind of get caught up on some of the roads. Roads is the one thing you drive around and everybody hits a pothole here, hits a pothole there, and I think if we delay on that any further, it's just going to continue to increase in cost. So maybe worth that discussion a couple weeks from now.
Anyone on the council have any more questions?
I just think that we heard from a very impressive group of people tonight.
Thank you. So I'll ask one more time if anyone else wants to speak before we close the public hearing. No? Okay. Thank you.
So then I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Ogier?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. Can I just get your address?
Do you want to give them a minute to leave, if anybody wants to?
70? Great, thank you. Have a good night. I got it. I got your name, yeah, yeah. Elizabeth, your address, what's the number of your address? Fillion. Fillion or Gilfillian? Fillion. Fillion. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Grounds. That's her maiden.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's nice seeing you.
Gavel?
Joanne, you ready to go back? All right, continuing on, please. Discussion by council vote or other action on payment of bills. Anyone have any questions or like to make a motion?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
GZA environmental for $3,900 for 138 Elizabeth Engineering.
What number? I numbered them this time.
41.
41. Oh, very nice. Look at how easy that is.
Right? A little bit easier. GZA, GEO, environmental.
I can
okay.
actually take care of that.
I was gonna say, yeah.
That $3,900 was to pay the engineering firm. We had a town resident on Elizabeth Avenue who insisted that we look into a washout in his rear yard. So the only alternative we had was to hire this engineering company. Mike Cruz went down to dig test holes, and we came to the conclusion that we originally told this resident that it's a stump dump, not anything with the leaking cistern several years ago. So that's the fee for the engineering firm.
Yes.
I think it's money well spent, as the administrator can point out also, because we feel that this is going to be the first of several residents who live on this tremendous hill on Elizabeth Ave that are convinced that there's other issues and it's not a stump dump.
Okay.
So at least this report solidifies that fact for us, and it had nothing
Provide
to
you
do
a
with
little basis for going forward.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, number 65. Narragansett Council Boy Scouts 1050 Explorers Academy. Just curious, is that, oh,
Yeah,
That's to pay the fee that it costs for each explorer to go to a camp at Camp Varnum in
oh,
Narragansett.
good, oh, good.
In
Okay.
the last 2 years, we've taken, they have a valedictorian. We came 1 and 2 in the last 2 years.
Oh, good, okay.
And won the PT award.
Wonderful. I think I had one more, go ahead. Is anybody else while I'm looking for my other one?
So I just had a question on the number 48 for the new copy machine for the police. We don't lease those, we buy them out?
correct. Well, they did. They purchased it. It depends on the department's requests on which way we do it, whatever's more feasible, and if it's under the bidding amount.
I spoke with the finance department on it, and I just said, whatever the best way you feel we should move forward. We went with the copy machine that, I guess, I don't know if it's at Highway or in the finance department. So they felt it was better to purchase it, not lease it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just let it, I
Yeah.
left that up to them. It was less, I said, whatever the least expensive way to go, and that's the way they did it.
Okay.
We just use everything in the department 24/7, so we destroy things.
Okay, thank you.
The last one I had is number 24. Just out of curiosity, the Woonsocket Water for 90,000, cost of new bond. What, is that not a new bond? Is that just the description of it, or?
It's just description. Which number it is it?
Item 24. 4 on, so it would be after
Oh,
the.
it's the second one,
After
sorry.
the check
Yep.
register.
Give me 1 second. Yeah, that's for, yep, underwater sewer, yeah. That's just the description.
So that's a quarterly payment to Woonsocket?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Again, anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the supplier invoices, total payments, $3,599,862.21.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on consent agenda. All items listed in this section are considered in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. A, town council minutes of May 15, 23rd, and June 1st and 5th of 2023, and communications for May of 2023, the Animal Control Monthly Report, North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Monthly Report, North Smithfield Municipal Court Monthly Report, and North Smithfield Police Department Monthly Report. Anyone like to make a motion or like to remove any of these items?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as approved, as presented.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Discussion, please. Under facilities manager, this is minutes of June 5th. Thanks, Steve. Under June 5th, facilities manager, it is stated in here, several council members and town administrators of Wellesley made recommendations for this position. Do we mind listing who those council people were that made the recommendation? Can we go back into the tape and list them?
I think it was myself and Mr. Ogier that put it on the agenda.
Mr. Sorry, so you can go.
No, did you want to know, who else, like, what do you?
Yeah, because there were a number of questions about this position. Why we're on the, well, it's really not on the agenda, so we'll
Yeah.
deal with that at
It
another
is.
time. But yeah, I'd like to know who else was in favor of this, recommended it. If you would direct the clerk to review that and see if there were others.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Please.
Can I make a recommendation?
Mhm.
If the minutes are gonna be more summarized, could we maybe put a link to the YouTube site? Just so if people wanna go back and watch, they can at least go, and, I mean, I don't know how many people go back and read meeting minutes, but, you know, at least it kinda ties it there where,
The link is on the front.
is it? I didn't see it on all of them.
Well, this is, you want it on the minutes?
Yeah, or at least post it, yeah,
Okay.
somewhere, yeah.
Sure, we can do that.
That way, these people can go back and find it if they
Okay.
want more detail.
Sure.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Old business, discussion by council vote or other action on status/progress report on completion of specific items. Municipal review, building review task force, there's no one present. Does anyone have any feedback from them? No? Any updates? Okay. 3 to 5 year forecast?
I sent him an email, Peter, today. Just waiting for, he's on vacation, so just waiting for him to respond at this
Okay.
point. I proposed, hopefully this is good for you, that Thursday, anytime, I said asked for anytime after 4:30,
Okay.
so.
And he gets back, would you say, after the 20th?
He only wants to talk, he said, I only want to talk about it after the 20th.
Okay.
So,
That's fine. All right, thank you. Grants?
A couple updates and a correction. Let's do the correction first. Under pending grants, the EMA radios have been approved. So EMA will be receiving $30,000 to purchase some 800 radio band portables. One thing I'd like to point out, a new grant was successfully applied for, and it's the Hazardous Mitigation Plan update. It was submitted by Bobby Monahan, the assistant planner, and basically the hazardous mitigation, so you'll see that it's a total of $45,000.90. $40,590 is the grant itself, and in-kind services from the planning department and DPW will be $4,500. So no out of budget expenses. It's going to be in-kind services. And a quick synopsis of what a mitigation plan is about is to reduce the long-term risks associated with such things as hurricanes, wildfires, flooding, winter storms, chemical leaks, tornadoes, earthquakes, and yes, we are on an earthquake fault. We abut an earthquake fault. So that's what this plan is to do. And 45, it's going to be a very comprehensive plan on how to deal and to mitigate future problems.
Good.
So when you see Bobby Monahan, please thank her.
You will.
Okay, and then number 4 was facilities manager. Did you want to speak to that, or did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
Yeah, has either the vice president or president had conversation with the director of public works?
No, all we did was bring it up. We haven't gone further on it. It would be something we'd obviously have a conversation to find out. It's basically, we see that the buildings need to be taken care of, so it's kind of like a long-range plan, so someone can get some sort of system in place so that we're not so that we aren't forgetting to do PM maintenance on the buildings, and we have kind of a capital plan as to what will need to be done on the buildings. That's all it's about, really.
Okay, I believe the town administrator should be involved in those conversations. So when you do schedule those conversations, I think you extend an invite to the town administrator to participate. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we just roll that over to continue it, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
All.
Yeah, that's all. It's very preliminary, but.
Yeah. Website?
GJ, I had sent you an email. I don't know if you had seen it.
Yeah, I emailed you back. So I think we're trying to coordinate with Civic Plus to figure
Yes.
out what kind of services do they offer. And the site hasn't been updated in quite some time in terms of the software that it runs on, so to say. So, so we're going to look to at least see what kind of improvements can be made there and what other products do they offer, and then work with Vertical 6 to see on the hosting of it all and what does any of that look like, and then who can actually manage it, whether it's in the town or if Vertical 6 can.
He had sent a pretty lengthy, like an essay email on some of the details that I had forwarded. And he had just reached out, I want to say 2 days ago, getting a post check. So if just set up a meeting and we'll go from there. Yeah, it's super easy. And they seem very involved. So it looks like it's a good prospect.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right, the next one is new business. Discussion by council vote or other action on town council serving as a charter review commission. Mr. Ogier?
I'll be very quick with this. So I brought it up like in December. I think it would be a good idea to have. I tried to go the external route of a committee, but I think it was Mr. Biergard that mentioned that, the council can serve as one. And so I think we should look to do it. We've had a lot of meetings where we've had things come up, whether it's things that maybe the charter isn't the most up-to-date in language. So I would think that maybe we should carve some time aside once we get past maybe the summer or something, or in the summer, and just start looking at specific things that we can look to put on a ballot for the 24 election. Most communities take a year to plan their charter review stuff, so it's definitely a process, but I think it's something that we could benefit from.
Doug, do you have anything particularly in mind that you would think Need the charter, to look at the charter about?
I know, well, I know the purchasing thing, David had mentioned that our charter has something specific, but he's like, you can make it as granular as the state law. There's some language I know, that I think I've seen where, maybe we need to clean it up to allow the council some options. Like when the solicitor came up the first time, and the serve at the term of the council, just like the school committee has with theirs, and just trying to make it look like it's more cohesive, just looking at it against state laws in general and anywhere where we need to clean up language. I know it's been done in the past, but it's been a couple years, so it may be good. Nothing specific, though.
Because I did have a specific thing that the charter does not address, and I'll just say it briefly, because when the 2 or 3 weeks between Election Day and Inauguration Day, there's nothing in the charter that says what will happen if someone who was elected is unable or unwilling to take their position as the member of the council or the school committee. There should be something in the charter that says if they're unwilling or unable, just during those 2 or 3 weeks, it goes to the next highest vote getter. After that, it would go to a special election. But currently, it would have to be, if somebody is unwilling or unable to take that position, you'd have to have a special election, and when you just had an election a week ago. So I would just like to address those 2 or 3 weeks in between the election day and Inauguration Day.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we could schedule some time and just look at it and
Yeah.
make the recommendations and have a public hearing and go from there.
So it would just be like a workshop?
Yeah, like a workshop or two, nothing, it could be the only thing on the agenda even. So it's not like, it's buried inside of a long agenda.
We never have long agendas.
Yeah. well, So, that's all.
Good.
Okay. So do you want to put that, you want to bring it back?
Yeah,
later
I'll
on?
reach out to Joanne and look to find a time where maybe it doesn't, works, unless you have a time, Madam President, that you think.
No? Is that it for that one?
Yeah, that's it,
Okay.
short.
The last one is open forum for agenda items only.
Couldn't wait.
Joey Savigny, 1790 Pound Hill Road. When you guys do the charter review thing, there was one thing that did come up in the budget committee, and that was when the administrator's budget has to be presented to us. I believe the charter says it's sometime in March, but it doesn't make much sense for us to get that in March when the number's not very accurate. It's much better if he gives it to us last, because then we've already seen everybody else's numbers. We can compare them to his numbers, and we've gotten numbers in from the state and revenue. It's just a much better outlook from the budget committee. So if you are gonna do something with the charter, keep that in mind, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joey, just one other thing, being on the budget committee, did you find any other areas that you, was restrictive or with the charter? Or-
The only other thing we'd like to do is we'd like to meet more in depth with the school committee, maybe the budget committee and just the school committee, to go over their capital items. When you look at their numbers on the capital side, they're very broad, where when I get the numbers for the tennis courts, it was specific. We have quotes, we know what the numbers are.
Right.
It's a lot, it would make it a lot easier on the budget committee side if they came to us with a capital number that was more accurate. That way that we can look at the quotes and be like, yeah, okay, this is the numbers that they need to do these projects. I mean, if you look at their numbers, everything's 100,000, 100,000, 50,000. There's no set numbers on their capital side.
They're
But
all
other than-
estimates.
Correct.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the numbers are there.
Now, you have a full committee now, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to thank you
Yeah.
publicly for the tremendous work and the courage it takes to talk, about things that sometimes are not very,
Oh, you're welcome. I
You
mean, we
know,
had a
so-
great committee. The committee that we have was phenomenal. I mean, we spent a lot of time going over the numbers. What we did was we came up with what we thought was the best plan for the town at this time. And it does help a lot of the other departments. We gave fire 2 guys starting in January, Public Works a guy, police a guy. We kind of spread it out amongst everybody,
right,
especially with the state giving us that extra funding. It kind of helped, so.
right, which is what you were trying, you were trying to make that point, and I appreciate it.
But
Yeah.
good luck with the budget.
Yeah, well, thank
Now,
you.
in the charter, doesn't it say that the budget committee, they can meet
Quarterly.
quarterly?
We can meet whenever, I mean, but we are supposed to meet quarterly and whenever there's new contracts.
Yeah, and maybe that would be something that you could meet with the schools, you know, here and there, and just try and get a little bit more feedback from.
Yeah, because I mean, they've got money that I don't understand how they get to it, so.
I'm sorry, Joey, excuse me. Yeah, so if you guys could continue doing that, that would be great, because then it just gets you more prepared for going into next season. Does anyone expire this year, anyone's term?
I don't believe so. I mean, there was,
Might be
out of the
Christine,
committee, the
right?
only one that was still there from last year was Christine. The
What
other
was
four
the
of us are
question?
new.
Does anyone's term expire this year, do you know offhand?
I think most of them expired already when I left. It was only Christina there.
There was only Christine when I started. I was just,
Everyone
it
else
was
is
me and
gone.
Christine, and then,
But I mean, do you think she's up this year?
I think she's got one more
I
year.
think she's got another year.
Okay, well, you guys did a great job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
excellent. Yeah,
Can I
thank
just ask you a question?
Yes.
You know, you talked to the school about this restricted fund?
Yes.
And the money that they can spend is restricted. How does the money get into the restricted fund?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
That's
I'm kind of
restricted.
confused that if the money is there for a restricted item, are we funding those restricted items? And that was the question I was trying to ask. Because if we're funding those restricted items, why aren't they paying for those restricted items out of the restricted money and using that other money for the general fund?
It's no different than our restricted items. Whenever we have a budget goes through, we have stuff left over from the budget that we want to set aside money for. Projects, we put it aside, we have a little Excel, sign those funds for that project, and that's basically it.
What Lisa was saying, though, I think, is that she was alluding to the fact that there were some of it might have been grant funds that were
food
restricted
service, yeah.
and food service. So I'm just wondering if there are, additional restrictions on them that, would prevent them from accessing them.
I'd
For
be
any
interested
reason,
to
you
see
know.
that list.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have not seen it?
I didn't even know it.
Yeah,
To be honest, I didn't
no.
even know what it was gonna say.
Budget
And I
committee
have,
didn't see the list neither.
Okay. It would
per
be good to
per
see.
like ordinance, I have the ability. I'm allowed to see it, so I could
Mhm.
always request it if I wanted to.
Well, I
And
think
I could
then
share the details of what's listed, just like ours. If the council or the administrator wanted to see our restricted list,
Right,
it's right there. I can provide it, super easy.
okay.
But when we do that, like, ours aren't really restricted, it's just reserved, so they just have like a title on them, but this
Well,
sounds like it was.
When you
it was
look
like
at
a
it,
specific account.
well, it depends on I'm not thinking of the right terminology, but when you look at fund balance on our audit, there's 4 or 5 different categories: unassigned, assigned, restricted, committed, and reserved and restricted are not that far off from each other, so it's kind of where it falls in. So it's the same thing for the school.
Okay.
So I can always request it and see
It'd be
what's in there.
interesting just to see
Yeah,
what's in,
please.
Yeah.
especially if it's 550,000 and it's always there, it might be interesting just to see what it
Right, and see
entails.
what can be reappropriated for something else.
Right,
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, executive session, discussion by council vote or other action pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. A, potential litigation regarding town retirement funds. B, discussion by council vote or other action pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42465A5. Any discussions or considerations related to the acquisition or lease of real property for real purposes, or of the disposition of publicly held property wherein advanced public information would be detrimental to the interests of the public. And 1, discussion, vote, or other action on the acquisition of real property for public purposes.
I'll make a motion to move into executive session.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Ogier.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. So I believe Mr. Carullo is going to come for B, but he